I have always been here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, geeks, nerds, and ambassadors everywhere, and welcome to the Ambassadorial Wing. And of course, I am your host, the Ambassador, and glad to have you all here with me this evening. And it has been a very long week, and I'm glad to be back with you all tonight. And this evening, we're going to be starting a series of discussions on a franchise of one of my favorite franchises from the late 90s going into the early 2000s. And tonight we return to TheMatrix. And this evening we will be discussing the Animatrix. And y'all might be asking yourself, Ambassador, why are you starting with the Animatrix? Wouldn't it be more logical to start with, well, the first movie? Yes and no. Because for me, the series does indeed start here for one particular reason. And we'll be spending some time this evening talking about this animated anthology within the Matrix universe, one of my honestly all-time favorite animated anthologies. But for one particular reason, it gives us an origin story for how the Matrix came to be. And of course, the two-parter, the Second Renaissance. But before we get into the discussion this evening, I just want to take a few minutes and give you all a bit of an update on what's been going on with yours truly, me, the Ambassador. It has been a very long and somewhat tumultuous year. In some ways good, and in some ways bad. And you might be wondering, well, Ambassador, what's going on? Well, for those of you who may remember or may not, back in April of this year, Mother Ambassador went in for heart bypass surgery, excuse me. And surgery went fine. The recovery, however, was very long, very arduous, and it took a big toll on me, both physically and mentally, and, well, somewhat emotionally, because we nearly lost Mother Ambassador. Now, thankfully, Mother Ambassador has been home since late August. She is doing well. She is back on her feet and doing what she does best, living her life. But we recently got hit with some bad news on Madam Ambassador's health. And I don't want to start off the stream with a downer. Far from it. But I want to give a little transparency to you all before we jump into the good part of the stream tonight. Back in 2016, Madam Ambassador had her hysterectomy for medical reasons. And over the last several years, she has been dealing with a lot of repercussions from that operation. And this past week, we found out that she has got a mass around one of her ovaries. And it is not looking too good. I actually ended up having to leave work early today, as should she, so I could take her to the emergency room. And we're going to be looking at surgery to remove her ovaries because of the mass and the nature of it. So the reason I haven't been as active on social media and the reason I haven't been as active here is because of Madam Ambassador's health. And For those of you that I've kept in the loop on this, I do want to thank you all for your support. I do want to thank you all for messaging me, DMing me, letting me know that you care. And I appreciate that. And hopefully within the next few weeks, we will get Mad Ambassador straightened out. And we'll be able to wrap up this year on an up note, both with Mother Ambassador and Madam Ambassador's health being going in the right direction, going up, doing well. But it's also been a very emotionally hectic year for me because I am on my third job this year. I quit one job that I had been at for a very long time and went into another job. And unfortunately, that job didn't pan out quite as well as I had hoped. It turned out to be a very negative and a very toxic work environment. And after a while, I needed to leave. I needed to go and I needed to find something else. And thankfully, I did. I've returned to a field of work that I had done back in my early 20s and mid 30s, and I really enjoyed it. And that was retail. And I finally found a workplace and an environment and a group of people that I really enjoy working with. And also, Madam Ambassador has returned to work. And I'm grateful for that as well, that she was afforded that opportunity. And things are both good and still somewhat stressful for the ambassadorial family. And I do appreciate y'all's support. I do appreciate you all helping us get through this. And if I've seemed a little more on edge, a little less jovial at times, now you know why. So, but anyways, folks, that's just a little bit of an update on what's going on with me on a personal level. And do want to let you all know in terms of the channel moving forward. Got a few things coming up in a couple of weeks. We will be celebrating 2 years on YouTube, and we'll be doing a ambassadorial anniversary stream for that. We will be back live tomorrow afternoon with the weekly Babylon 5 reviews with the Council of Ones. And got a couple other projects in the wings. One that I've been working on for a little over a year now, and one that I've been working on recently with a fella that just literally popped into the to the chat, Mr. Larry. Zach, good to see you, man, and appreciate you being here. And yo, back to you. So, but anyways, folks, thank you all for being here tonight. And well, let's now that I've given my updates, now that I've kind of given you a peek behind the curtain of what's been going on with yours truly, the ambassador, let's get into the discussion tonight. The Animatrix. Now, and just a little heads up, this Saturday night, I will be doing part 2 of this series, The Return to the Matrix, with a discussion on the first live action film, The Matrix. But tonight, we'll be discussing The Animatrix. And when they announced that they were going to be doing this anthology, I was honestly intrigued. I have always been a fan of anime. For those of you that caught my review stream on, or my discussion on Akira, I have been a longtime fan of Japanese anime. And it's a medium that allows for a lot of creative and very imaginative storytelling. And it's one that I've always had a appreciation for, a passion for, you even. And for them to bring all these different animators and directors and creatives in to do this anthology within the Matrix universe, for me, it piqued my interest. And what we have with the Animatrix is a series of short stories that take place in and around the main Matrix franchise, the main films. You've got the first and the second Renaissance parts 1 and 2. You've got the episode called The Final Flight of the Osiris, which is a lead in to the second film in the Matrix series, Matrix Reloaded. You've got several other shorts, one called Kid's Story, which also ties into both the Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions. You've got a very interesting little film noir piece and everything called A Detective Story. You've got one done in the art style of a favorite animated series from the late 90s. So, Zach, you have a good night, man, and appreciate you popping by. So, we'll catch you next time. But also, as I was saying, you have a series that was done in the animation style of a favorite late 90s or mid 90s animated series from MTV, a little show called Eon Flux, for those of you that remember it, which I most definitely do, called Matriculated. So, and honestly, all of these series, all of these shorts, each tell a very isolated but very intriguing story within the Matrix universe. And I personally, I enjoyed all of them because they were very thought provoking, they were insightful, and they were a lot of they were a lot of fun to take in. And greetings to the chat, Sci-Fi Nation, Sci-Fi, good to see you, bud. Yeah, Eon Flux. Yeah, I'll bring up your comment here, Sci-Fi. And hey, Sci-Fi, if you want to join me tonight, I have popped the link into the chat. So if you want to hop on and talk Animatrix with me, you know what to do, my friend. Eon Flux was awesome. MTV cartoon. They got a live action movie. Yeah, I never got a chance to check out the live action movie, but I might do that somewhere down the road. I've heard mixed things, but as always, I'd like to make up my own mind on stuff like this. So, but kind of digging into the anthology itself, and we'll start at the beginning with the first and second, the second Renaissance parts 1 and 2. The animation style was rather unique because this is told in a series of archived flashbacks, which gives a snapshot of the events that led up to the machine revolt and the war between humanity and the machines. And it's got a lot of depth to it. And the thing that I appreciate about it was it very much reflects if there are certain events that reflect real life history. You have the shot of it's a reflection of the photograph from the Vietnam conflict, where you have I think it was a Vietnamese or it was a soldier holding their gun to the head of a civilian, and you have a reflection of that image in the second Renaissance, where you have a human soldier holding a gun or a pistol to the head of a machine, but in this case, the human pulls the trigger. You also have the very iconic image of the protesters in Tiananmen Square from back in, I believe, the 1980s. Whereas in this instance, the tank didn't roll over the protester. But you have a mirror image in the second Renaissance where you have a machine protester standing in front of a very large tank. But in this case, the tank runs over the machine. And the thing I found interesting about the second Renaissance is it really makes you ask the question, what is life? And I don't mean what is this thing called life? What do we consider to be sentient life? Is it just us, flesh and bone human beings? Or is it something more than that? Is something that we could create also a form of life? And something that the narrator says throughout the Second Renaissance is, bless all forms of intelligence. Because here's the thing, we ourselves in real life, as I speak right now, we are tinkering on the edge of creating very high ordered artificial intelligence. And if we are not careful, science fiction could become science fact. And I think this two-parter that gives the origins of where did the Matrix come from, why is the world in the state that it's in, and how did it get there? And unfortunately, what we have in the Second Renaissance is the question of what is life and how do we treat that life if it's not organic, if it's not like us. And I, for one, was very intrigued by that question. Oh, Sci-Fi's here. Hey.
Hey, what's up,
Hey.
Ambassador?
Hey, Sci-Fi. Good to see you, bud.
Oh, same here. I missed your question. I was trying to transition into the into the StreamYard.
No, you're fine, man. So, well, it wasn't necessarily a question; it's more a rhetorical question, not a question towards anyone per se. The thing I was saying is, I'm assuming you've watched the Animatrix, otherwise you wouldn't be here.
Yep.
So,
and I actually posted back after you put that in the chat.
mhm.
You know, in the message where you posted, and it's been a while since I've watched it. I remember bits and pieces. I also played some of the PS2 Matrix games. So if I get a little off on a couple details, I do apologize ahead of time. It's been a while, so
It's okay, dude. It's all right. Well, right now I'm just discussing the Second Renaissance, the two-parter that's in the Animatrix anthology. That's the kind of it is the origin story for the state of the world and how the world came to be that we see in the first Matrix film. And the question,
do we have a definitive time? Didn't they say in one of the Matrix movies when that happened? That was
it was Morpheus who said it was in the late 20th century, late 21st century or something, somewhere along in there. So we don't have a definitive date per se, but we do have allusions to that it is somewhat in our current time frame, give or take.
Yeah,
So
because they did do some on-screen images. And you could see like New York City, all the cars going down on the street. So it looked like something we would identify with as modern life.
Yes,
obviously.
Yeah, very much modern life. Yeah, absolutely. So, well, and as I mentioned before you came in, or when you were in the chat, they put a lot of mirror images, like the protesters in Tiananmen Square, the soldier from Vietnam pointing the gun to the head of the protester or the civilian, and they did that deliberately to, I think, humanize the machines. But I don't think you necessarily need to humanize the machines for one particular reason. In a lot of ways, they are a product of our genius. Therefore, they are part of us. And we unfortunately treat them very inhumanely when we should be treating them rather humanely. And you have that trial for the one machine that rose up and rebelled against its owners and murdered them. And he was simply doing it simply in preservation of its own life. And
So that brings me to another thing, though. Okay, so
sure.
it was preserving its own life,
Hmm.
which, if you go by Asimov's three rules of robotics, it is more than, you know, able to do as long as it doesn't violate the rule of do no harm to humans.
Hmm.
So when this AI was created, were the three laws instituted?
Well, here's the thing: we don't know if the three laws were even necessarily a thing in this universe.
Right.
So it doesn't necessarily correlate. It doesn't track one thing to another. It's simply,
It just saw that its life was in danger and it protected itself.
yeah, it saw that its own life was in danger, and therefore it preserved its own life by taking the life of its two human owners or masters. And the way that the narrator discusses the relationship between humanity and the machines is very much a owner property type of situation, much like akin to slavery in the from like the 1500s up until, or like from the even the 13 or 1400s up until the 17th and 1800s.
Which, that's interesting in itself because
Mm-hmm.
as our technology is advancing as fast
Mm-hmm.
as it is,
Yep.
okay, now this is year 2021. We've got
Mm-hmm.
phones in our pockets with thousands of times more computing power than the computers that we sent to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
We have instant access to any information, well, almost any information we want at our fingertips.
Yeah.
Okay, and we treat this as it's a device, it's a thing.
Yes.
So what's the difference between that and putting two arms and two legs and a head on it?
Well, here's the thing: with the phones and the other devices that we have, it doesn't necessarily have a conscience. It isn't what we would consider to be sentient. You know, and I don't want to get off on a big tangent here, but this does lean into the episode or in the early seasons of Star Trek Next Generation, The Measure of a Man.
Yep.
The episode where the Starfleet engineer Maddox wants to come in and dismantle Data so he can figure out how to build more of him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always been one of my favorite episodes of Next Generation because it's a very intriguing it starts a very intriguing conversation about what is life.
What? Yeah. What
And
is life? What is
yeah,
sentience? How do you prove you're sentient?
yeah, and even Picard asks that question of not just Data but also of the engineer himself, Maddox. How do you know you're sentient? How do you know I am? How do you know any of us are? And what we have in the Second Renaissance is we have an entire race, or races, if you want, of machines that have been built to serve humanity's needs. And what I find really intriguing about all this is the fact that we treat that what is depicted in this two-parter animated story is that a vast majority of humanity treated machines very inhumanely. And it really begs the question, what does that say about us as people? I mean, now obviously within that two-part story, you do have people who do see the machines as sentient, as beings who deserve to have their own rights and have their own say and their own place in the world. But then on the other side, you've got people who just don't care. They
Right.
only see them.
You see them as a device to make your life easier.
Yeah,
It,
exactly. I mean, you hear just a side conversation where a person says, and it's said to me, pardon me, sir, but I'm not designed to function that way. And you can almost figure out
Imagine what the guy. Yeah.
what the guy said to the machine. And it really it gives you pause in the fact that what and to the chat, Tim Stock, Tim, is good to see you. Tim, well, and for those of you that are watching this live and those of you that'll catch us on the replay, if you're interested in watching any of the Matrix, the Animatrix or any of the movies, they are all currently, if you do have it, they are all currently on HBO Max. And I think they are also on, I saw them somewhere else, but I'm trying to remember where. I think it was Pluto TV, possibly, that they were also
Oh,
on
there you go.
there as
Pluto
so.
TV, good. That's free.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's either Pluto TV or it might be even Peacock. Maybe I'd have to double check because the memory isn't unfortunately as sharp as I'd like it to be at times. But yeah, and Tim, that's a good series too. Harry Potter, that's always a win. So, but thank you for popping in tonight, bud, and we appreciate it. So,
absolutely, great to see you, Tim. As always, my friend. And I just want to say, anybody can use Pluto TV either in their web browser or if you have a phone or an Xbox or something, just get the Pluto TV app. It's free. It does have ads, but it's free and it's legal.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about nothing
Exactly.
bad happening.
Exactly. So, but yeah, getting back on topic, the thing that I appreciated about this story is it doesn't paint either side necessarily as completely evil. We just happen to go down a path that is very unfortunate. And what we have here is a story about how humanity sees itself slipping into obscurity and seeing the machines become the dominant force in the world. And particularly in part 2 of the Second Renaissance. As Morpheus said in the first film, we do not know much, but what we know is we are the ones who darkened the sky. And we see Operation Dark Storm. And we see that it is indeed us that blots out the sun.
Right, because that would lead one to think, well, okay, the machines were solar powered at the time.
Yeah.
So whatever happened to lead up to that, we don't know what the actual catalyst was. Was it a misunderstanding between the machine, which obviously you would have to have some sort of primitive AI to even communicate with the humans that were using them, right? Like, sir, I wasn't designed to function that way. So it had to have some kind of comprehension, in his brain to be able to say that to the guy. So.
Well, what we can gather is in part 2 of the Second Renaissance, the machines migrate away from humanity and create their own civilization. And the rest of the world makes a knee-jerk reaction and decides to put an embargo and a blockade around the machine nation. And as a last recourse, the machines start to form armies and march across the world and start conquering. And the human militaries, our militaries, the world's militaries, responded in kind, and they fought back. And as a means of countering the machine's spread, they came up with what they called Operation Dark Storm. And you see the sky be darkened. You see the bombs fall that create that black cloud that encircles the entire world.
All right. You even see that in the third movie, actually, where they actually go up through the clouds and they show the sun, and then back down into it.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get to that next week. I think because I'm covering all four. I'm covering the whole franchise. And I think I'm doing this partly because of the new movie that's coming out next month, but also because this has been a franchise that I have been a long time fan of, and I wanted to discuss it.
No, that's
And
fine. Did you get a chance to play any of the? There's a couple of PS2 games.
I played. It wasn't on the PS2, but I did play one for the Xbox that was kind of a tie-in to the Matrix Reloaded, and it was okay, but I prefer the movies. I'm worded that
Yeah,
way.
yeah. No, I
Yeah.
get it. I mean, I have a couple of PS2 games. One is called The Path of Neo,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of cool. And I forget what the second one is, but it's not that bad either. I mean, for a PS2 game back,
Mm-hmm.
back then, it's not
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. No, I got you. I get you. I get you. But the thing for me with the Animatrix, in particular with the Second Renaissance, is it's a very gut wrenching story because you can see all the mistakes that were made by humanity and even by the machines. The
Mhm.
machines simply wanted to exist. They wanted to be able to forge their own destiny, to have their own place in the world. I mean, for heaven's sakes, you see at the end of the second of the at the end of the first of part one of the Second Renaissance, the machines send ambassadors, no pun intended, to the United Nations, and they come very peaceably and very respectfully. And the two ambassadors are just drug out of the chamber, and we can assume killed,
Recycled.
essentially. Well, and that's the interesting thing, which you see in um, part one is us exterminating the machines and burying them in mass graves or dumping them into oceans and rivers and everything else. And you hear people saying, die, bot, die. Like it's not even a conscious being.
Right. Well, that and what gets me about that is, and you were talking about what led up to all this was the
Mm-hmm.
embargoes, and so they raised armies and fought back. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you talked about how the U.S. entered World War II. It was we were strangling Japan at that time. Got 80% of its oil from the U.S. and we
Mm-hmm.
were strangling them of oil, and they had no choice but to attack us if you look at it from their point of view. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just the parallels that it's drawing is just from real life is really, kind of, I don't know what the right
Well,
word is, but it's,
no, you picked the right word there. I think it does parallel a lot of real life events. And I think what the storytellers were trying to do is use images from real life events, use images that were very iconic to convey their story. Because if you think about it, we unfortunately, as human beings, have a tendency to treat our fellow man very inhumanely. And if you look at the story that's told in the Second Renaissance, it is in a lot of ways a reflection of real life history because it's a cycle. We often repeat cycles in history are repeated at times. And we created a slave race of these machines and we use them and we abuse them. And when we could get no more out of them, we cast them aside. And that is a very unfortunate thing
it's a very ugly
because
side of humanity
that's true. Yeah, exactly.
that we still need to
Because,
face and still need to deal with.
yeah, because, even if you're not a person of faith like myself, we are taught that all life is sacred, all
Hmm.
life has value,
All life is precious. Exactly. It
all
doesn't
life, all life.
matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's this person, that animal, that animal. It don't matter. It's precious.
Exactly. And what we see with the Second Renaissance is we have created a race of beings who border are fully fledged sentient, and we treat them monstrously. And it breaks your heart to see it. And there's a very iconic image within the second part of the Second Renaissance where they do propose Operation Darkstorm and it is approved. Everybody starts cheering and whooping and hollering like, "Yay, we're gonna win! We're gonna beat the machines now!" But then it flashes to a skeleton clapping its hands, which signifies that humanity, as they know it, is about to die out.
Yeah,
Because
basically, yeah. I mean, they turned themselves into what they were in the movies, copper tops.
yeah, batteries. Yeah, because and that's what the narrator, the one program within the Zion archive says. This is the main focus of the Second Renaissance, where the machines turned humanity into a power source. As Morpheus said to Neo in the first Matrix film, humans are no longer born, we are grown in vast fields. And then we're plugged into these power plants to power the machines. And if we had simply not blocked out the sun, this would have never happened. And then,
Now, I have a question about that. Okay.
sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Obviously, the human body produces extraordinary amounts of electrical energy.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have the most sophisticated computer known to us, which is our own brain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, being plugged into that system, wouldn't that not only generate the electrical power that they need, but the processing power?
Well, here's the thing. We have created computers that can compute and think and process 1,000, if not several thousand, if not potentially a million times faster than we can.
Right,
We just
as we know it today. But I mean, even, and I don't want to cross franchises here, but you go to any sci-fi franchise, and I say the most sophisticated computer known to man is man's brain.
That's true. Yes, I agree. But still, even as complex and intricate as our mind is, we have been able to create something that can even outdo the human brain.
Right. Using what? We use what, 10% of our brains? If we're super smart?
That's the theory. That's the theory. And I don't know if it's 100% fact, but that is
Right.
the
I
theory.
don't know if it is either. That's just why I'm bringing this up, though. I mean, if they tapped into that other 90% of processing power from every single human that they plugged in, right, to that system, what would that do for their AI? That'd give them an AI mainframe that just...
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. The thing you have to realize about the nature of the relationship between the machines and humanity in the Matrix is they don't see us as any more than a power source. They just keep our minds in a state of this simulation known as the Matrix to keep us unconscious, to keep us docile, so that it doesn't result in open warfare.
To keep our mind occupied, so that we don't actually wake up and say, "What the heck is all this?" Right, and unplug ourselves and
try to unplug ourselves. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, and we can kind of transition because there is actually an episode or an installment in the Animatrix known as World's Record, where a person within the Matrix does achieve awareness of the Matrix, and it's told, and we can come back to Second Renaissance and everything later on if need be. But there is actually an episode and everything, as I mentioned, called World's Record, where a athlete, a very world renowned athlete, achieves freedom on a limited basis through his athletic ability as a runner. And it's a very interesting story because it's all told through intercuts of flashbacks and during the course of the race. And you've got a group, and the animation styles through all of these shorts varies drastically. And I would say that the animation style for this one kind of mirrors the animation style for the episode Matriculated, which was done in the same style as Eon Flux. But it has a slightly different feel and a different look to it. And in every episode of the Animatrix, the agents look slightly different, and in this particular instance, they almost look demonic. The way that the agents were designed, the way they're dressed, and everything, they have a very unique and distinct look to them. Not to mention the other characters within the story itself, and I think what they were trying to say, and obviously, Sci-Fi, give me your thoughts on this as well. I think what they were trying to tell in this story, World's Record, is the fact that there are people who can achieve within the Matrix the ability to free themselves without necessarily having Morpheus or Neo or somebody else out there in the world that's free to wake them up. They can almost wake themselves up.
No, absolutely. I think you're right. It's through their physical conditioning, or what they think of as physical conditioning in their own mind. Obviously, their actual muscles and stuff aren't working like that, but in their mind, their body is. If you're an athlete, you got a damn good body. Let's not mince words here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you think that way, and then you think about it, if they went on to also not only train their physical body as they think of it, but also their mind, and they exercise their mind as much as they do their body. Obviously, the more you exercise your mind, the more you can do with it. So they may have gotten a sense of, hey, something's not right.
Mm-hmm.
This ain't how it should be. I wonder. And once you get that question, once any human being gets a question, I wonder, what if, right? What's the first thing we do?
Mm-hmm.
We test that. We test that what if theory, don't we? It don't matter if we're wrong or not. We're going to test that what if. No matter the question, we're going to test it. Even if it's just to prove ourselves wrong, we're still going to test it. So that's what they might have done. And I think, they played a little bit on that in the first movie, but I honestly think that's also going back to why some of the first Matrixes failed, because the machines didn't realize these people were going to get not smart necessarily, inquisitive. They're going to get so inquisitive as to ask themselves, well, why is this like this? Why? And they're just going to keep asking questions. That's human nature, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, exactly. Because within the World's Record, there is again a narrator, and the narrator does make mention of the fact that people who have very highly inquisitive mind do at times become aware of the existence of the Matrix. And the machines are very frightened of this, because if you notice the reaction of the agents in World's Record, They're like, he must not wake up. This one must not wake up. And you have to ask yourself the question, could this guy, this runner, I can't remember if they ever mentioned the character's name per se, but you have to ask the question, could he have potentially been one of the previous ones? Like Neo and the ones that came before Neo, the Keanu Reeves one. So that's the real question there.
That brings up another question, though. Are they skirting on the question of reincarnation, or just the fact that some humans are so inquisitive that it's going to obviously repeat itself?
I think it could potentially be both sci-fi. Because if you think about it, and we'll get into this because I am going to go see Matrix Resurrections when it comes out next month. It's on my watch list. That and Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm definitely going to go see that when it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they very deliberately asked. They do posit the questions of, is reincarnation is it a legitimate thing, and whether it's legitimate or whether it's a real thing or not, that's for philosophers and scholars wiser than you or I to deposit. I mean, we can talk about it.
Absolutely. And yeah, we can talk about it, but that's for everyone to decide for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. So I think with the Short of Worlds record, it's unfortunately the runner ends up crippling himself and he's confined to a wheelchair. But for some reason, he's still keyed in, even though the machines came in while he was in his tank in the real world and they subdue him. Even though that happens and he's now crippled within the simulation.
Mm-hmm. But his brain is still keyed in.
In the last few seconds of that short, he says, "Free." And he gets up out of the wheelchair, and even though he stumbles, you have to ask the question,
what did he just figure out?
Did he get out?
Or what did he figure out?
Yeah, did he figure his way out of the Matrix?
Now, did he get up out of his wheelchair or tank or whatever the thing was? Because it's mind over matter, especially in the Matrix. In the Matrix, your body doesn't mean nothing. It's just a digital representation.
Well,
only your brain is the only thing keeping you from thinking you can't do stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Because even though his body was crippled, his brain was not. That right there is the really interesting thing. And I think that's actually was one of the focuses of that short, the power of the human mind and how it can reshape how it perceives reality. And I'm not talking about necessarily having hallucinations or anything like anything like that, or having some sort of mental disorder, but I'm talking about more so how our mind perceives the reality that surrounds us. And this is something that even the Matrix movies, the live action movies, also asks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we'll delve into as like I said, as we go on through the films. And for myself, I do believe that we do have a certain power over our own reality. We can not necessarily bend or mold reality to our will, but how we perceive our place in the world is a very powerful thing.
It is, because I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm just saying the way we perceive ourselves in a world is how we are going to conduct ourselves in our daily lives. And what we do in our daily lives is what's going to determine where we are in the world. It's almost a 360 type of deal right there, because if you perceive yourself as, I'm only this, I'm only that, that's probably all you're ever going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have that dream and you have that vision and you take steps to make that happen, then you can get to that place. So it's like a 360 rotating thing. You have to see yourself there to begin with in order to get there.
Yes. Well, and for all of us, we often allow others to dictate or influence how we see ourselves in the world rather than deciding for ourselves who and what we are going to be and how we are going to manifest our own personality in the world around us. I'm reminded of a line from the first X-Men movie, and it's a conversation between Storm and Senator Robert Kelly, and he asks, "Why are you afraid of us?" And Storm says, "I suppose it's because I am afraid of what you people are capable of." And Kelly says, "Well, I think you're about to have one less person or one less normal human to worry about, and that's just a few seconds before he dies." And it's also a conversation that's echoed in X-Men 2, X2, X-Men United. And
Yeah, that was when the government was trying to put down the mutants at any cost because they were afraid of them. They didn't know what they were.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a conversation between Storm and Nightcrawler. And Storm says to Nightcrawler, "Fear can keep you safe." And Nightcrawler says to her, "People never see any more than what is with their own eyes. They never see beyond what they can perceive with their own senses. They don't trust anything beyond that." And within the world's record, the runner doesn't necessarily trust his senses. And because of that, he's able to break the shackles of the Matrix, even if it's momentarily.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts to see the world as it really is, as nothing but code. And does obviously argue the question. And again, this is a good opportunity to transition to another episode of the Animatrix. And it is, of course, Matriculated, where a group of humans have captured a machine and are using virtual reality to try and reprogram, or not so much reprogram, but to convince the machine to join their side. And they put the machine into this very surreal environment, which for a machine would seem very illogical and illogical and unconventional. And there's a conversation between two of the human characters about the nature of reality. And that's, not to get off a big tangent about the Matrix franchise in general. Even speaking as a person who is a Christian and went through seminary and everything, but I do enjoy the philosophical aspects of what the Matrix introduced to the public. It may have been very basic philosophy, but I think even basic philosophy can lead you to deeper truths and some really good conversations.
It really can, and it can be eye opening, even if in just the smallest way.
Exactly.
The way the Matrix movies did it was, even if you didn't think about it before, went in and watched this movie, and all of a sudden, that question was in your head: what if? Like, what if this is what this is, right?
Yeah.
So it started people on a basic philosophical journey or discussion, or just got people asking the question, right? Which,
and and it gave the opportunity to be introduced to all these great quote unquote, for lack of a better term, all of these philosophical minds that have existed throughout history, and I've had an opportunity to read on and study and listen to some of their read some of their works and so on. And speaking as someone who never had a real vested interest in philosophy, going back and reflecting back now 20 some odd years on from when the Matrix films first came out, because if you realize we're a little over 20 years now, we're 22nd anniversary of when,
Man,
let's see,
time
no,
flies.
because
It doesn't even seem that long.
well, the first Matrix came out in 1999,
Yeah, I
and
know. Yeah.
Animatrix came out a few years after that, because I think Matrix Reloaded came out, I think, in either
Was it?
2001 or 2002, and they released Animatrix um at this pretty much at the same time. They released
This
it before
before
Matrix Reloaded.
before the second movie. I remember because I remember seeing them in the store side by side. I'm like, what's this
Mhm.
Animatrix thing? I want to pick that up, and I did.
Yeah. Well, and and the thing, the reason I say that is because there's an animated short on the Animatrix called the final flight of the Osiris, which is sort of a mini prequel into the Matrix Reloaded, because it gives you a lead up to the main conflict of the machines burrowing from the surface down to Zion, and you
Hmm.
do see those drilling devices in Reloaded and in Revolutions both. So,
I think there was a special edition
mhm.
for those movies where I'm not sure if you had to buy the whole set, but you got the Animatrix with it, and you got that one you were just talking about.
Well, Final Flight of the Osiris is part of the Animatrix.
Right. So yeah, there
So
was a special edition where you got the trilogy, and it came with the Animatrix. So
that
uh,
I think they may have done that. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I know I've seen um sets where, particularly where I work and everything, we've got it's not a box set per se, it's just it's a case set and everything of all four films,
mhm.
and without any of the special features or anything, but still, but you know getting back to the episode, the one episode we had started to discuss, and that was Matriculated. You have these humans who are trying, like I said, trying to reprogram or trying to convince this machine to join them. And you see all these other machines that they were able to capture and do the same thing too. And there's, like I said, there's a conversation between two of the human characters, and they're discussing, well, what exactly is reality? Well, and the female says, well, I know what reality isn't, because I used to be dreaming and now I'm not. So, and the other characters, the male character says to her, so reality lets you know, or dreaming lets you know that reality is real. She's like, no, my brain does. And if you think about it, you have the interaction of organic and inorganic consciousness in existing in a virtual space. And that, honestly, for me, is a really interesting concept, for the simple fact that if you think about it, how would a conversation like that really take place, where you have a very logical and very linear consciousness conversing with a consciousness that isn't so linear and is more free flowing and more unorthodox in how it rationals things out for itself.
Well, I could go. Um, how do I put this? I could go off franchise and use another franchise as an
Be my
example.
guest. Sci-fi, go ahead, please.
The Borg,
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
Cybernetics, the ultimate melding of machine and
Biology, organic,
biology. Yeah,
yeah,
organics.
we're organic. Well, yeah, and in particular, the episode I Borg, where the one Borg that they are able to that
Hugh.
yeah, Hugh, yeah, Hugh of Borg, and yeah, that's
How do you
you
say? Yeah, they actually say, how do you separate the man from the machine? And they dealt with that in All Good Things, or not All Good Things,
no,
but
best of both worlds.
Best of Both Worlds. Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
So,
Well, and you know, but here's the thing with matriculated, you're not trying to separate the machine from the man. You're trying to persuade, and I want to use that word deliberately here because they're not trying to force the machine to see things their way, because you get the impression that there have been times when this process failed, that they were unable to persuade the machine to see things their way, and they unfortunately had to destroy the machine.
mhm.
And but how do you persuade a consciousness that is very linear, very logical, and very organized in its way of thinking to switch sides and join you? Because all machines have been programmed. You kill all humans on sight.
Well, you need a very, very logical thinking person, for lack of a better
Mhm.
word, to do it.
Yeah, but here's
Um,
this. Go ahead,
you'd
Sci-Fi.
almost have to create, um, man, I don't know how to put this. You'd almost have to create like the perfect AI to argue for you.
Well, but here's the thing, though. They didn't. They were able to convince this machine that that they humans were its ally, because they kept putting it in these life-threatening situations which threatened the machine, even though the machine you would figure the machine would not worry about its own existence.
Right. So the machines are using logic, right? Pure logic. That's what they are. They're
Yes,
logic engines, basically. So
exactly.
you have to use their logic against them, or at least make them see that their logic doesn't make sense.
Yeah, where
It's like trying to argue with a
Mhm.
Vulcan almost, but a computer instead.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Yeah, I would say that's not a bad analogy. Um, but what you see is that they kept putting the machines in these very in these in these very threatening situations where its safety was at risk. And well, the one thing that they did is they converted its appearance from the machine to a somewhat more um bipedal and humanoid appearance, and therefore it started to perceive itself as human, even though its appearance wasn't completely human. But it
Mhm.
did have two arms, it did have two legs, it had a head. And you
But
see on
it
a
knew it
couple,
wasn't. It knew it wasn't human, though. Obviously.
yes, obviously, but they kept trying to, when it was in danger, they would try to save it, and it was reaching out to be rescued.
Hmm.
And you start to see the links of the chain that lead to it becoming sympathetic to, these are my people, I am part of this group, they care for me, they want to preserve my life. And it even goes back to the Second Renaissance, where the machine B166ER, the very first machine to rise up in rebellion, but it's flipped. Instead of the machine destroying humans, in this instance, it's humans that are trying to save the machine to
So it
gain its
sounds.
trust.
So, and I hate to use another franchise analogy here,
No, Sci-Fi, you're fine, man. Go ahead.
but it sounds like a tipping point to where you could either go Cylons want to destroy all humans, or the machine world makes us all into copper tops, but you still have this one little faction that says, hey, these people actually tried to help me.
Yeah. Well,
Now,
you even.
now, if
Go ahead.
this one machine in the Matrix universe said this human tried to help me, what effect does that have in the overall franchise? Is that still within the big mainframe we see down the road? I mean, is that inkling still in their programming, or has that been programmed out? I mean, that humans
Well,
do have a good streak. I mean,
here's the thing, because the machine became disconnected from the machine mainframe, because they were able to disconnect it from the machine mainframe. That's how they were able to
oh,
work with
turn
it.
it, so to speak.
So it's not the same principle as the Borg hive consciousness.
Right. Okay. So
Once
it's
you,
more like when
Mhm.
they took Hugh away from the collective and started saying, "Hey,
Yeah,
you're an individual. You have this that Right. Okay. No,
yeah,
that makes
it's
sense.
yeah. They well, if you remember too, in that episode where they're Borg, they're actually able to block um, the signals that are received through the Borg, and they're able to work on Hugh. It's slightly different here with what the humans do to the machine. They're able to disconnect it from the machine mainframe, but I think the machine mainframe operates on a different principle than the Borg hive
Well,
mind.
yeah, I do too. I think it's more of an actual computer type
Yeah.
stuff, not an actual like organic consciousness. Obviously, with the board. So, no, yeah, I
But
get that.
what you see by the end of that particular episode is that one machine destroys the rest of the other machines, and it goes off on its own, and you see it sitting in front of that exhaust flame or whatever it is out there in the middle of the landscape, and it's meditating, much like the young woman was at the beginning of the episode. So it's kind of come full. That particular machine has come full circle now, and unfortunately, its independence came at the cost of many lives, and we don't know what impact its freedom is going to have on the larger landscape. It may have none whatsoever. It just may have proven that a more advanced machine, can learn the value of human life. To kind of echo what Sarah Connor said at the end of Terminator 2: Judgment Day. If a Terminator or a machine can learn the value of human life, maybe we can as well. And that machine immatriculated learned the value of human life and learned the concept of camaraderie and community and fellowship.
And compassion.
Yes, that too. And the really heartbreaking thing is it plugs the one woman that helped capture it, and it sees get killed by another machine. It plugs her mind back in, but unfortunately the mind is so traumatized that unfortunately it regresses and goes away, and the machine realizes, well, it's dead now,
Mm-hmm.
so it
It's
unplugs
just
itself.
too far
Yeah,
gone. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And the thing I will say about all these episodes of the Animatrix, they do seem very downbeat. But if you think about the nature of the Matrix franchise, it itself is somewhat downbeat in how the finale goes. Unfortunately, Neo and Trinity end up dying, and they sacrifice their lives so that everybody else has the opportunity to have a better life. but I think there's even they're somewhat downbeat. There's always a spark of hope, because even in at the end of part 2 of Second Renaissance, where you see the archive program sitting on one of the pods that holds a human being that's in the power plant, you know that eventually that one person will eventually be freed by one of the ones.
Mm-hmm.
So, um,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
well, to kind of transition and everything, um, I think this is by far one of my favorite parts of the Animatrix, and that is, of course, the episode, the short called A Detective Story. And the reason I love this particular one, not just because of the story itself, but the art design especially, because it reminds me a whole lot of that one installment in Star Wars Visions called The Duel, where it's almost like a charcoal drawing or a pencil drawing set in motion. And the obviously the story itself is very intriguing. You have a detective story, a film noir, or a pulp fiction, no pun intended, detective story set in the Matrix universe. And
No,
I
no,
love,
no
I absolutely,
apologies needed, bud. I mean, to me, it reminded me of, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the animated version of Riddick, Chronicles of Riddick. There was an animated version of that after the Riddick movies.
oh yeah, I did see Dark. I did see the one that takes place in between Pitch Black and Chronicles of Riddick called Dark Fury. I did see that one, but that's the only animated.
That might be the one. I thought there was one afterwards too, but no, there only was one animated. So
Not
yeah,
that
you're
I'm
probably
aware
right.
of. Yeah,
You're
but the
probably right
thing,
though. But yeah, the animated one. That's the art style that Animatrix reminds me of. The art style, the story style is just.
well, the animation style for each installment is different. Um, they're distinctly different in a lot of ways. Um, with the second Renaissance parts 1 and 2, it does. I don't necessarily know how to categorize it per se, but it does bear a resemblance to some other anime, Japanese animes I have watched in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But with a detective story, it does have a slight resemblance, like I said, to. Now, I don't know sci-fi if you watch Star Wars Visions or not. It may not have been your thing, and that's fine. I mean, if
I I don't know if it's my thing. I haven't seen it, so I can't say if it's my thing or not.
um, I did a review of it a while back. I will say there are some installments that I didn't particularly care for, but overall, I really enjoyed it. Now, I don't know. I don't know if you have Disney Plus or if you have a way of watching it. I won't say it out loud. If you have a way of watching it where you don't necessarily have to have a subscription or whatever, but or if you can get access to it from somebody else. But I would encourage you, Sci-Fi. I know how much of a Star Wars fan you are, just like me.
I no, not really. That's the thing. Everybody thinks I am,
Oh,
but I'm really not. I mean,
okay, all
I,
right.
I
Well,
watched.
let me
I
let me
watched.
put it.
I
Well, let
watched.
me.
Okay, the first three films, and then I kind of got warmed up to the second trilogy, which is
The prequels, yeah.
the prequels.
Okay, well let me put it to let me categorize it this way. I can at least say you are a fan of Japanese anime. Yes.
Not as much as my daughters, but yes. I mean, there was some stuff I watched. I mean, I love to watch
Oh,
the original
okay.
The original Bleach,
Okay. If
not the
you
one they have now, but the original.
no, I get you. I will say this. Just as a lover of sci-fi, I recommend you check it out. You may not like all of them. You may like all of them. I don't know. But I would at least encourage you to give it a chance because I think it
Absolutely.
might.
I give everything a chance. I mean, I'm not
So
gonna go in before I watch something and say I hate it. I'm not that kind of person.
I know, but the same thing is true here with the Animatrix. If you enjoyed this, which I'm getting the impression you did like the Animatrix,
Oh yeah, I do remember
I think
watching it. I did like it back. It's just I got to watch it again. That's the only thing.
if you like the Animatrix, if it's something you enjoyed, I would encourage you go check out Star Wars Visions.
Okay, cool. Definitely, we'll do that.
So, but getting back on track, getting back on topic. The thing I was starting to say with a detective story, it does have a little more humor in it than compared to some of the other installments of the Animatrix. The thing I would say here is this is a very unconventional detective noir story, and the simple fact that there is a lot more gadgetry to it, a lot more technology to it, but that, of course, does lend itself to the nature of the Matrix itself. And you've got the classic voiceover by the hard-boiled private detective and Mr. Ash, and then you've got Carrie Ann Moss reprising her role as Trinity, because the short does focus around this detective being unwittingly commissioned by the machines to track down Trinity. And he goes on this very outlandish case, and he does eventually catch up to Trinity. And there's actually a conversation through computer with Trinity and Mr. Ash, the private detective. And what I really appreciate about this particular short is it had humor, but it also had weight to it. It did have drama to it, and that's what any good, as the title implies, detective story is going to have. I mean, if you look at one of my all-time favorite detective story movies, The Maltese Falcon, with Humphrey Bogart, um, you get that similar impression here, because the detective wears the trench coat and the fedora, and he's got the slacks and the button-down dress shirt and the whole thing, and he's
Oh
got
yeah, the
his
whole
revolver.
40s thing. Yeah. Oh man, you just reminded me of a movie, the Dick Tracy movie. I gotta watch that again.
The one with Warren Beatty and Madonna.
Yes. Yeah.
I have not watched that in such a actually, I don't think I've ever actually watched it.
If you like them kind of stories, I think you'll like it.
Here's the thing: I don't know. I really don't know. I would have to. I guess I'm just gonna have to sit down one night or whatever and just sit and check it out and go.
Just keep an open mind and remind yourself, okay, this was made in the 90s. It's
Well,
gonna
hey,
have 90s cheese to it. So
I am a teenager. I was a teenager in the 90s.
I
So
was too. So, but yeah, I mean that movie right there. I mean, come on. I had Roger Rabbit. I had Dick
mhm,
Tracy. I had
mhm.
Tucker, the man in his car. I had all these great '90s movies. Uh,
Oh yeah.
I count Dick Tracy as one of them for some reason. It was just a one-off, and I like
Now
those kind
here's
of things.
yeah. Well, and here's the thing. I remember all the commercials. I remember the McDonald's commercials for Dick Tracy. Get your Dick Tracy Happy Meal now. And I said, to kind of segue back over to the Matrix. I'm sitting here now at this particular moment. I'm thinking, yeah, they couldn't do a McDonald's Happy Meal for the Animatrix. It just wouldn't work.
It wouldn't. Not with the toys you would need.
Nope. Watch as Trinity uses a vacuum gun to remove a probe from
Somebody's
Mr. Ash.
yeah.
And just saying that is unintentionally dirty.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, if you wonder why the Matrix never had McDonald's Happy Meal toys, now you know why.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, good grief.
I'm surprised Burger King didn't do it. They had some pretty
No,
weird toys back then.
not that I'm aware of. Now, McFarland, they did do some high end action figures and so on that were really highly
Oh, the real
articulated.
detailed ones. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Now they did do merchandising on that scale, and that was cool.
yeah.
I did like that.
But you got to remember too, though, the Matrix wasn't geared towards kids either. It was more of
Well,
a
it wasn't even really necessarily geared towards merchandising either. It's not like
exactly. It just when the Wachowski brothers brought this out, it was like, here's our vision, here's our idea. Come watch our movie,
yeah.
and we did it by the millions. We did.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll be honest. I would I would pay money even now. I would even go like I would pay $10 or so to go watch the Animatrix on the big screen.
Jesus Christ,
I
10
think it would look.
bucks. I was paying $15 before the year 2000 just to go see a movie with somebody else, just to get 2 tickets, a soda, and a popcorn. Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
that shit must cost like $50 nowadays.
Well, I'm just talking about my ticket. I'm not talking about refreshments or anything. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, back then, the late 90s, early 2000s, it was like 8 something for a ticket for one person.
yeah.
Back then, this is 20 years later.
Well, the last couple months I've been going to the IMAX to check out some of the films I've seen and done reviews for, and I think for the IMAX, I paid $10 for just myself, and I was like, I'm good with that.
Right now, you just paid $10. This one you just saw?
For Eternals, yeah, for Eternals,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Dune
yeah,
both,
because you said you saw that in IMAX. Wow, holy crap. So you paid $2
Well,
more for an IMAX movie than I paid for a 480p silver screen movie back in 1999.
Yeah.
If that.
Mm-hmm. But the thing I will say this. I do like the fact that they do stick to the structure of a classic detective noir story in this particular installment of the Animatrix. Even though they place it in the Matrix universe, they still keep it rooted. They still keep a lot of the tone and the dialogue very in keeping with how a classic old school detective story would go. And the fact that they got Carrie Ann Moss to come in and do the voice of Trinity, not just for this, but also for Kid's story, I thought was really cool. I thought it was cool of her that she was willing to come in and do this for the Wachowskis. Because now,
Absolutely.
granted, the Wachowskis have more direct control over Final Flight of the Osiris, and I think the first and second Renaissance. The rest of them they kind of left alone for the most part, but they wanted to kind of tie those other two stories very deliberately into the main franchise. And that's the nice thing I've always seen about these animated anthologies, whether it's been The Matrix or Star Wars or even Halo with Halo Legends. These studios bring these creators in and they just let them play for the most part. They
And,
don't give them any kind of restrictions or anything. They just say, go do your thing, go create.
and another
And
franchise that did that well was the Final Fantasy franchise. If you've ever seen the
yeah,
Final
oh
Fantasy movies,
dude, no, I guess sci-fi at the time. I actually did reviews. I think it was about a year or so ago, maybe a little bit longer now. I did reviews for both films. Oh no, actually no, I just did for the first one. I did just for Spirits Within.
Spirits
And
Within, yes,
oh,
that
I
came out
love
in 2001. 2001, 2000.
It was early on in the 2000s. It
Yeah.
was like it was either in 99 or 2000,
It is
somewhere
early.
along
It's the very first Final Fantasy movie. I remember when it came out.
Now I do have
I
just real
love
quick.
that movie.
I do have the spin-off movie for Final Fantasy VII Advent Children.
Oh, that's the one I'm talking about. That's the one I seen.
I love those films, both
Advent
of them.
Children, and then Spirits Within came out after that a few years
No,
later.
it didn't. Nope.
It didn't? I thought
No.
Advent Children came first.
Advent Children came out after Spirits Within.
Oh, shit. Okay, so I got those two mixed up.
Yeah, because I remember going to see Spirits Within in theaters. Advent Children was a direct-to-video release.
Yeah, because I found it on...
It never got a theatrical release. Anyway.
Yeah, I found it on BearShare and Kaza and all that stuff as soon as it released.
I've got both of them on DVD. And I got the collector's edition. I actually remember I got Advent Children one year for my birthday because I've always been a huge fan of Final Fantasy. I played my first Final Fantasy game was actually Final Fantasy 9 for the PS1 way back in the day.
Wow, mine was Final Fantasy 7.
I tried to play 7. I could never get through it. But I got the remaster that they did.
I was just going to ask you, did you try the remaster?
I love part 1 of the remaster. I cannot wait for part 2.
Well, the whole thing is on Steam or Xbox. You just it's.
Oh, I know. The original version is on. Not
the original. The entire remaster is on Steam and Xbox.
I
have both versions.
No, but sci-fi. What I'm saying is, the remaster of Final Fantasy VII, they are splitting up into parts. Part 2, as I'm aware, has not dropped yet.
No, it's the entire game.
Then you're talking about the original, not the remaster.
The original, yes, it's the original game remastered. It's on Steam and Xbox One. It's been out for months and months.
I think we're getting our wires crossed here, sci-fi. They have done updated
the graphics,
an updated story and updated graphics for Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, but it's not in parts. It's an entire game.
All right, hold on here. Because I have part 1. It ended at part 1. There is no part 2 yet for the Final Fantasy VII remake, as far as I'm aware. I would hear about this because I'm okay.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm going to pull it up on Steam real quick. I have it on Steam and on Xbox One.
Here we go. Okay, we got our wording wrong. It's a remake, not a remaster. Final Fantasy VII remake, not remaster.
Final Fantasy VII. Oh, there it is. Last played May 23rd, 2020. 107 hours.
Yeah, Final Fantasy VII remake is a 20. Okay. Yeah, I think we got our wires crossed. I meant to say remake. You were saying remaster. So, my apologies on that.
Oh, no problem. That happens. I'm not trying to argue with you.
So, I know it's okay. But okay.
Nerdporial Lifeform in the chat says remake is a different game. Oh, okay. I didn't know they were doing a new remake. Okay.
Yeah. And Nerdporial, a pleasure to see you. I know I've seen you over on Tim's Talks channel and appreciate you tuning in tonight. You came in kind of we've gone down a bit of a rabbit hole. We were talking about Japanese anime, and of course, the Animatrix is very much based. Well, sci-fi. Thank you. So,
hey, not a problem. I support all my YouTube friends,
and I do appreciate it truly. So, Nerdporial, thank you. I do appreciate that very much. Yeah. Hey, Nerdporial. if you love anime, I have done some other discussions on other anime stuff. I did a review a couple months ago on the one of the granddaddies of anime, and that is of course Akira, which is one of my all-time favorite films, regardless of its animation or otherwise. I love that film to death. So after this stream's over, if you want to go check out that review, it's on my it'll be under my 80s pop culture playlist. So and it should be near the top, or you'll be able to find it easy. So, but yeah,
I
yeah.
just
Go
want
ahead.
to tell you, Ambassador, I
Mhm.
think you would really love some of the work Nerdtorial does on his YouTube channel. So if you
Mhm.
want to return the favor and go check his channel out, that
I
guy does
might
some really great stuff on his channel as well.
I might actually be sub to Nerd Portal, and if I'm not, I will definitely rectify that. So, but yeah, Nerd Portal, thank you very much for the subscription. I do appreciate it, and I will check you out. Um, yeah, I've actually heard about rumors that have been talking about doing a remake or a more fleshed out version of Akira based on the manga. So, and I am all honestly, I am all for that. I mean, because I would love to see. That's weird. So, anyway,
Well, I'm glad my tweet about the stream worked. Thank you, Nerdtorial, for showing up
yeah,
and
and
showing some love in the chat.
sci-fi, yeah, thank you. That I want to see, and Katsuro Otomo should be involved. Yeah, Nerdpoil, I wholeheartedly agree. Nerdpoil, there's actually a fella who was actually on that stream with me, Zod Rider. He is actually, I think, one of the most hardcore anime people that I've seen in a very long time. So, um, he's a regular co-host on my Babylon 5 streams on Friday afternoons, and he loves anime. He loves talking anime. He's also a huge DC fan. He's a huge fan of Zack Snyder and everything. So if that's sort of your sort of thing too, go over and check out Zod Rider. Um,
Yeah, I
and
remember
if you,
talking to Zod on the last BSG stream I was on with you. He's a good dude.
yes, he is. He is a very good guy. Regard him as a very good friend. So anyway,
Did I say
oh yeah,
BSG? I meant Babylon. You know what I mean. Oh, Jesus.
Babylon 5.
Yeah, you know what I meant. Sorry, but
It's
so
okay.
many sci-fi series I get mixed up sometimes.
Yeah, Norporeal. Yeah, that is very true. They did leave a lot out of that manga because it is 6 volumes and there's a lot of story. Yeah, Norporeal. You'll see my playlist for everything I've done with Babylon 5 as well. You know, it amazes me. In 2 years, working on my video right now. Ooh, nice, dude.
The
Very nice.
the original, John
I'm not sure
Carpenter
if he
thing,
means the original or the remake.
or the
But either
remake.
way,
Well, it's not really a remake. It's more of a reimagining, but it was made in like 2013 because it's on Prime right now.
actually, it was 82.
Yep, the
The
original. Okay.
original, do or the remake, the Carpenter remake.
The
Let's
John
put it.
Carpenter, right? Yeah.
Well, of course, he did the prequel as well that came out in 2011.
Right, that's what I was trying to call it. It's a prequel. Yeah, 2011.
Yeah, the reason I remember that so well is 2011 was the year of my divorce from my ex-wife, and I went to see that film. It came out that June or July and everything, and I went to see it in theaters, and I was like, I like this.
I'm sorry about the circumstances that made you remember it, but
Eh, it's not a bad thing. So, it's closer to the source material. There is a 1951. Yeah, the thing. Yeah,
yep,
the 2011 is a prequel to the A21 with
yep,
Norwegians. Yeah,
yep.
yeah. Napoleon. I absolutely. Yeah, I honestly really enjoyed the prequel. I was a little confused because they didn't put anything that indicated that it was a prequel. They just called it the thing.
Hmm.
And that was it.
Even if you look it up on Prime right now, the thing it comes up with the 82 version, the 2011 version, And I think you can get the 1951 version, but you have to subscribe to AMC or something to watch it.
That wouldn't surprise me. So, but to kind of steer us back over to Animatrix, I know we were talking about detective story, and the thing that I found really intriguing about this was the fact that she says to the detective just after she has to shoot him to keep the agent from coming through. For what it's worth, I think you could have handled the truth. And yeah, Nerporo, you're not exactly wrong there. Um, I have to say this. I have not watched a single Halloween movie since Halloween H2O, and I really have no intention.
He says
Oh, really?
detective story is done
Shinichiro
by
Watanabe,
the
the
Cowboy
detective
Bebop
named
director. Oh, I'm going to mess this up.
Shinshiro
Shishiro
Watanabe.
Watanabe.
Just let sci-fi. Let me do it. I'm the host here. Let me do it, so you don't butcher it. You daffy Canuck.
I know, right?
Shinshiro Watanabe. The detective made me think of Jet Black. Honestly, Nerdportal, I have never actually watched Cowboy Bebop, but I know that it is currently on Netflix, and I think I might give it a watch before the live action version comes out because I am actually interested in the live action. And unlike a bunch of people on, oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. I have it on good authority from people that are bigger anime fans or just as big anime fans as I am that I would enjoy it. But unlike certain individuals on YouTube, I'm not going to get bent out of shape because a certain female character doesn't look as, I'm putting it politely, voluptuous as she does in the anime or as scantily clad. And hey, Norporeal, that's a very distinct possibility. Live action may not live up to it. We'll just have to wait and see. I might even do a once I watch both and they finish both. They finish the live action. I
You
might
know, one
I
thing I've
might do.
noticed. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ambassador. Go ahead,
No, you're
finish
fine,
your thought.
sci-fi.
I was just going to say one thing I'm tired of in all of these communities
Mm-hmm.
because we watch each other. We watch people from other aspects of our sci-fi slash comic slash fantasy slash communities. We're all interwoven. And one
Mm-hmm.
thing I find disturbing is a certain I'm not going to say area of the community, but certain creators in the
Mm-hmm.
community. I can already tell what their videos are going to be. I can already tell what these people videos are going to be. And just like, okay, I don't want to watch their videos. I already know what they're going to say. I hate it. These people are going to
Yeah.
be like, I love it. And I'm just waiting for the ones that are like, I haven't watched it yet. If you want to see an honest review, right? And my whole thing is opinions about these movies are subjective. I'm not going to go get on the money train bandwagon just because the hate gets clicks or the love gets clicks. I'm not like that.
Well, and
And that's what I hate about our community as creators. You got those people that are in those camps that are going to do it for that. I'm sorry, it's just something that
no,
bothers me.
yeah. Well, and sci-fi. Here's the thing. I know I'm probably gonna get some pushback when I get into the two sequels for the Matrix franchise, because some people are gonna say, "Well, they were just crappy." I'm more in it for the discussion. I did have a mindset for a little while that I didn't particularly care for the two sequels, but then I went back and I rewatched them minus all of the online commentary that I had listened to about them. And it's kind of the same thing with the prequel trilogy, with Star Wars prequel trilogy.
Right.
For a while, I didn't particularly care for it, but then I went back and I rewatched them, and I revisited them, and I realized why I did enjoy them. And
And that's fine. I'm talking about people that are already trashing
Oh,
stuff
oh
before it
yeah,
comes out, or people that are
yeah.
praising its praises before it even comes. It's like you haven't even watched it yet. How do you know?
Well, exactly. You know, I did my review of the Eternals this past weekend, and
In the
I was very
minority?
I was very honest about what I had to say.
Yeah, you were.
And do I think it's the greatest Marvel MCU film in the franchise? No, I don't. Do I think it's up there with some of the really good ones? Yes, I do.
Hmm. And I
And that's
noticed
why
that too. I noticed that
and
you were in the minority for it, and people were trying to put you down. I'm like, why are they putting you down because you like something?
they weren't so much putting me down. I mean, I had one guy in here, and it's somebody that I whose opinion I respect because he is a comic book fan. He is a very hardcore comic book fan. And J Man, I regard as a contemporary. I regard him as someone whose opinion I respect. I may not always agree with it, but I do respect it.
Well, obviously.
And I tried to show everybody respect. I tried to give everybody a fair shake and a fair hearing. And you know, you don't like my take? Okay, fine. Tell me why. Tell me what your perspective is on it so I can hear you out.
Exactly. That's what I say at the end
And
of all my live streams and videos.
yeah,
Hey, if you disagree, give a thumbs down. Just be honest about it. But tell me why you disagree down in the comments. I want to hear why you disagree.
yeah.
Right? If they're watching it
And
after the fact. If not, tell me in the comments or during a chat and I'll address it.
yeah, exactly. Um Nerporial, you bring up this comment. I like the sequels. I'm assuming you're talking about the Matrix sequels. Revolutions wasn't great, but I can rewatch it. Lots of stuff now is boring in my opinion. No interest in the MCU. Hey, Nerporial, that's cool. You don't like the MCU? Not everybody's a hardcore comic book geek like
I'm
myself.
I'm not either. I'm not really an MCU fan either. I mean,
And hey, that's if you didn't like it from the outset, or you've just gotten to where you're burnt out on
I
it.
got burned out. I mean, I loved it as a kid, but then I, started going into all that stuff, and then all this crap with YouTube happened. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there was that couple of movies. What were those called? Dang it, my favorite MCU movies too. The one with the rat and the what's it called?
Nerporial, you have a good night, and thank you for dropping by. And we'll
Thanks,
hope
sir.
to see you
Absolutely.
again soon, bud. And Nerporial, I'll definitely give you a. I'll come by. Um, I'll come by and check out some of your stuff, if not in the very near future. So. And Zach, yeah, I see you in the backstage here, and I do see your comment. I feel the comic book market has become oversaturated. Zach, we're not going to be really talking about the comic book market or comic book movie market. We're going to be transitioning back over to the Animatrix. So I don't know if you necessarily want to be on this conversation or not. It's entirely okay. So, uh,
Oh,
yeah,
dang. I'm trying to remember what the name of that movie was. I'll remember it after the stream.
probably that's the way it usually works for
Yeah,
you.
it
So,
usually works for me.
so, but getting back on the Animatrix, that's the one thing you can say about the Matrix franchise, and particularly with the Animatrix. It was very original. It was very. I don't know if this term would be pretentious, but I would say in a lot of ways it was very avant-garde. It was not something that the public was used to, because the Matrix franchise itself is very unconventional.
I would say avant-garde. That's like a French word, right?
Yeah, um it's out there. It's not ordinary. It's not
It didn't have
uh,
the je ne sais quoi of the movies. There's no
well,
other
I would
French
say
word
that's
for
true.
it.
Yeah, It stood amongst itself. It's kind of stuck out from the crowd.
It did. It was its own thing, but yet it was still part of the franchise.
Yeah, and Zach, I've got a lot of friends who are looking forward to that film. I myself am looking forward to that film, but yeah, just a little bit, especially with what happened on a certain channel who dropped a couple of images from the film. So I can understand your comment there, and I can't necessarily say I disagree with you. But that's one of the other reasons why I wanted to revisit The Matrix, not just because of the sequel, which, like I said, I'm going to go see next month when it comes out, but
I'm
because
looking forward to it. I
I
mean,
am,
the only thing I
I
had a problem with is
mhm.
when the hype first came out is they were calling them the Wachowski sisters. I'm like, what the hell are you even talking about?
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if you know this or not, sci-fi. It was Larry Wachowski. I don't know if the other one has done this as well, but he had uh transition
I
surgery.
don't care as long as they make a good movie.
Yeah, I
What the hell's
know.
that got to
I,
do with making a good movie?
it doesn't. For me, it doesn't mean anything. You obviously don't care either. But
No, I don't.
I'm informing you. I'm
Okay,
letting you
that's
know
cool.
that's why this is why they refer to
But
them as the
but
Wachowski sisters rather than the
they were
Wachowski
making a
brothers.
big deal about it like it had anything to do with the quality of the movie.
It
That's
doesn't. It
exactly it don't.
you know what? I don't care what plumbing you have. Just give me, as long as
Give
your brain
me
still works right and you can
exactly.
make a good movie. Just give me a good movie. That for
Give
me is
me
all that matters.
exactly.
That from
Give me good content. That's all I care about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I want. That's why over the next couple of weeks I'm going to be revisiting the Matrix films, and because they were for their time, they stood out. They were different. As the Wachowskis said, they wanted to take anime and transfer it into a live action medium, particularly with the first film, and now with what we're discussing tonight with the Animatrix. They've gone back to the roots of the genre that they were inspired by, because the Matrix films are a live action adaptation, not specifically of any pre existing anime property, but just a homage to anime in general. And that for me was the really cool thing about the Matrix franchise. We had not seen anything like this ever before. They used a lot of different camera techniques and so on.
They did.
And
It was revolutionary.
we'll get into this on Saturday night when I do my discussion on the first Matrix film. But with the Animatrix, what they did was they went back to the roots of the genre that they were paying homage to in live action to tell all of these very interesting stories. And we kind of got off on a tangent here for the last
My
few
bad.
minutes.
I'm
No, it's a
sorry.
sci-fi. Stop it right now. Stop right now. I don't mind a tangent as long as it's informative and it's interesting. But what they were able to do with the Animatrix is they were also able to weave in connecting threads to the main storyline. And I will say this, and we brought this up a little while ago with the Final Fantasy films,
Mhm.
with the short, The Final Flight of the Osiris. We got very hyper realistic animated characters in that short.
Especially for the time when that movie came out.
Yes, especially for the time. Because if, like I said, I think the Animatrix its release coincided. It actually came out before the Matrix Reloaded. It was meant to, because that one short, The Final Flight of the Osiris, tied directly into. It's referenced in the beginning of the Matrix Reloaded when all of the captains meet with Morpheus and Niobe and all the others and everything,
Right.
so on,
When they yes.
because they're discussing the
What should we
transmission.
do? Should we go up and make the transmission, and then y'all go down to defend the city? We'll be there as fast as we can. That's yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And what I love about the Final Flight of the Osiris is it really fleshes out how the world functions. it really gives you a better sense of what the world looks like on the surface. And because we've only gotten references to it prior in the first Matrix film, we've never really seen on any type of scale just how dark and dead the surface of Earth has become now that it's the machines hold dominion over it.
Cloud covered for thousands of years, even though man was the one that darkened the sky. I mean, yeah, no, I'm
maybe
getting ahead
not
of
thousands. Maybe not
well,
thousands
maybe
of
not
years,
that long, but a good while.
Yeah, I'd say at least several hundred years at the very least. So, but I think what they were trying to do with the Final Flight of the Osiris is they were trying to see how far they could push the CGI animation to make hyper real human characters,
And they
and
did. They
yeah,
did.
I
If you look
was
at
just
the animation in it, if you look at video games around the same time, if you look at video games that came out before that movie, and video game character animations after that movie,
especially now, oh yeah,
that's where you see that they're like they can do that
exactly.
in movies. Why can't we do that with games? And you see
But now
that.
we can't. But here's the thing: now we do it with games. We almost we expect it. I mean, okay, slight segue, just real slight, and I don't want to get too far off on this. Do you realize it has been 10 years since Skyrim was released, and
I
they are
know.
doing another they're doing another anniversary drop for that game. They're adding in some more content for that game,
I don't
and they even
care.
did the remaster.
I don't care. I have the remaster on the Xbox One. If I don't get the new content, F them. I'm not buying that game for a third time.
No. Here's the thing, sci-fi. Here's the cool thing: if you have the remastered version, any
Yes,
of
I
the
do.
new stuff. Okay,
On the
here's the cool
Xbox
thing.
One.
Okay, let me finish. Here's the cool thing: for all the new stuff, you only have to pay $20.
Only shit. So they pay for the game in the first
That's
place.
not bad.
All the new
You're great.
stuff. Jesus. No, it's like, oh my god. You want me to pay more money for a game that's how many years old?
10 years old, but they did do a remaster. Remember that.
Yeah, and I bought the remastered after I had already bought the original version and the PC versions. I'm not putting any more money into this game. You give me a new Skyrim game or a new GTA game, I might think about putting some money into some studios.
I think you mean another Elder Scrolls, not Skyrim. Skyrim is just another.
I know.
Another
I'm just talking video games in general. I'm tired of what these studios are doing.
I happen to like Skyrim. I'm going to put the money into it.
I love Skyrim. I just had an update for it today on the Xbox One.
Well, for all you know, that could have been the new content.
Probably was.
Or maybe some of it. So, yeah. So you may have gotten some of it already. Some of it was already going to be installed. The other you could pay for if you wanted it. They were doing it both ways. There were certain stuff they were just going to download directly into the game that you already have. The other stuff, if you want it, you can go buy it. If you don't want to buy it, you don't have to.
Well, if it's just cosmetic stuff, I could care less.
It's not cosmetic stuff.
It's actual storyline stuff.
They're adding in new story.
Oh.
So, haha. But anyway, back on track here with the Animatrix. And I'll say this: another installment. Well, we'll finish up with Final Flight of Osiris. Again, it's a very downbeat ending, but we know now where it leads to eventually that sacrifice not being in vain, because it does lead to Zion being saved. And though you're very heartbroken to see how each character dies, sacrifice is not in this case, the sacrifice was not without merit. So, you there, bud?
Yes, I'm here. No, the sacrifice was not without merit. It had no, absolutely everything to do with the storyline.
Anyway. But I think there's one other part I want to touch on briefly, and then I'm probably gonna wrap up for the night. So, and that is of course Kid's story, and you've got another tie-in to Reloaded and to Revolutions with the character of Kid, but he's known as Mr. Popper. And this is a character who has
You're
been contacted.
talking. Wait, you're talking about that little white dude that Neo brought back in the second movie, right?
No, he didn't bring him back. The kid actually self-substantiated, as they say at the end of the episode. Where I think it's Morpheus says, or Trinity says, I didn't know transubstantiation was possible. And Neo says, well, apparently we were wrong. The kid was able to wake himself up and get released.
That's different than I remember from the movie, because there was this one kid.
Yeah, that you're thinking of the same character.
Okay, that is the same guy. Okay.
Yes, the little scrawny kid who keeps running around with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the kid. That's the character from Kid's story. And essentially, he's able to break loose on his own to get out of the Matrix. They just happen to come and collect his body and bring him aboard.
That why in the movies they say, "I didn't save you, kid. You saved yourself."
Yeah, essentially, yes. Mm-hmm. And I remember very distinctly when they released the Animatrix on DVD. They actually had now I think it was warranted here. I don't think it was on the nose, or it was unwarranted, because it does depict the kid ending his own life. And they put a disclaimer on there saying, we do not endorse people taking their own lives.
Well, why would they have to do that though when he got killed passing ammunition in the final battle with the machines?
Well, because it depicts him committing suicide.
Right, but okay, so they're going a different route with what actually happened in the movie, so now I'm confused.
No, Sci-Fi, it's very straightforward. They were trying to say that they do not endorse people committing suicide.
Absolutely. Nobody condones that I know of. Except Jack Scorpion.
But here's the issue. You get the wrong type of person that would watch that episode, and unfortunately some people's grasp on reality may not be as stable as yours or ours, and they might actually believe that this is a possibility, and they're trying to dissuade people from not doing this to themselves. You get me now?
Yeah, that's what happens when you give them timeout corners with soft padded floors.
No, that has nothing to do with the Sci-Fi. There are people out
there I know.
Well, this is something that, no offense, this is not something we joke about. People with mental disorders, it's not something to be joked about.
I know that.
Okay,
I'm just a little rougher around the edges than other people. That's all.
So, but there's a remark towards the end of that episode, and I think there is some truth to it. This world is not real, and the real world exists somewhere else. And unfortunately for some people, living in a fictionalized reality rather than living in real reality, than living in the real world, can cause you to have dissociative thoughts, unfortunately. But I think in this particular instance with Kid's story, the kid was right. He did realize the truth that he was living inside a simulation. He was not living inside the real world.
Mhm.
And what Neo said to him was, in fact, true.
I didn't save you. You saved
You
yourself.
saved
kid.
yourself. Exactly. So, anyway, I just realized there is one other short that we didn't touch upon. That was the one called Beyond, and it shows that there's actually a glitch in the Matrix, a big one.
Who'd have thunk?
Who'd have thunk that a computer program this massive would not have a glitch? But the glitch is centralized to a what they call a haunted house, and it is all because of a cat that this young lady gets embroiled in this little oddball adventure, and
And
the
again,
concept of
it makes me recall.
reality.
The
The concept of
Sorry, makes me recall a scene. The cat going meow, rewinds meow. It's like, what was that?
yeah, more or less.
What'd you see? Just seen a cat that walked by the hallway twice. Deja vu. What did you say? Shit! They reset it.
We're doomed. That's for Saturday night. That's for Saturday. I will say I did like this. I did like this particular episode, this particular part of Animatrix. Of course, as I've said, I enjoyed the entire Animatrix across the board. But Beyond is a very unconventional story because it shows that the machines are in fact fallible, because there is a glitch and they have to send in a unit to fix it. They have to fix the glitch. You see, we fixed the glitch, so he won't be getting paid anymore. If you get that reference, you get a gold star and a cookie.
I don't get paid anyways.
It's from Office Space with Ron Livingston and for heaven's sakes, Jennifer Aniston. So
that's probably why I didn't get it. Sorry, bud.
Go watch something other than sci-fi sometime.
I do try to. I watch comedy all the time. It's mostly Roger Dangerfield and Richard Pryor, though.
Go watch Office Space. It will change your life, much like it did me.
Oh, Jesus. If I must, I'll try to look it up. Jesus. Terrible.
Blasphemer.
Yeah. I went to catechism. I know all about that.
Double blasphemer. You're going to double limbo.
I'm taking the express elevator down.
No. You're going to double purgatory. You'll have to spend double time there.
I know, because I took catechism, right?
Yeah. So you're going to have 14 P's on your forehead. Just like Dante did.
Here's the kicker. It was Lutheran catechism, not Catholic.
Doesn't matter. But yeah, with the episode Beyond, it's a very unconventional story. This young woman goes with these kids to what they call the haunted house, and they realize that the laws of physics don't function quite right there. And unfortunately, the machines come in and suck out all the fun because, that's what machines do. They suck the fun out of everything. Of course, that also depends on the type of machine, because in some instances, machines can put all sorts of fun into things.
They can either put fun things in or suck fun things out. It's up to you, people. Which one do you want to buy? Anyway, I'm going to hell for that. I'm sorry.
Oy vey.
I know. I saw a joke and I went for it. I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
No, I'm not.
No, you're not. So just stop it. So, anyway, sci-fi. I think we're gonna do final thoughts, and like I said, we're gonna probably wrap up for the night. So I'm gonna let you have the floor for a few minutes. Please don't make a fool of yourself, and give us your final thoughts on the Animatrix.
All right. Well, thank you, Ambassador. I'll try not to make a fool out of myself. I'm a big fan of the movies. I played the PS2 games. I do like the Animatrix. As I said before I joined Ambassador, with the stream, it's been a while since I watched it, but it is good. I do remember that. I do not remember the distinct animation styles that he brought up. However, I will be looking into it just to see what I missed as far as that goes. So yeah, I mean, definitely, it's a great franchise, and I am looking forward to seeing what they have with the new movie. Not sure when I'll be able to see it, but yeah, I mean, overall, yeah, it's one of the series that I've watched as far as movies, video games, animations so far that has been pretty consistent, compared to a lot of others. So
Yes.
I'm looking forward to see what they have to offer us in the future.
As am I. So, well, and folks, my final thoughts on the Animatrix. If you have not checked it out, like I said, if you've got HBO Max, go over check it out. And if you have never checked it out before, go give it a look. I hope that the discussion tonight between myself and Sci-Fi will have enlightened you about this great little piece of early 2000s pop culture. And like I said, Saturday night I'll be back live, and we'll be doing a discussion on the very first live action of the Matrix franchise. So, and I hope to see you all there for that. Of course, like I mentioned earlier on this evening, I'll be back tomorrow afternoon with the Council of Ones. We'll be doing our review of Babylon 5, Season 4, the episode Face of the Enemy. And and also later on this month, I'll be doing my 2-year anniversary YouTube anniversary here on the Ambassadorial Wing. And we'll be doing a review of Ghostbusters Afterlife. I'll be going to check that out. And then going to be making a major announcement in regards to a project I've been working on for a while now here for the channel, and got a few things in the works, both here directly on the channel and in collaboration with another YouTuber or anything. So, but anyway, folks, thank you all for tuning in tonight. I hope you did enjoy the stream. As always, make sure you smash that like button. Leave your comments down below with your thoughts on the Animatrix or anything that me and Sci-Fi brought up this evening. And until I see you all tomorrow afternoon, you all have a great night. We'll see you next time. And until next time, these are the Ambassadors, signing off.